Hello, welcome again to Sport Unlocked. If you've not heard our predictions, our look ahead to 2026, there's still a pod on that, and you can take a listen to it on the feed. But now, this Sport Unlocked looking at this week's big issues with Martyn Ziegler from the Times, Tariq, Panja from the New York Times, myself, Rob Harris from Sky News.
Well, we should certainly look at the predictions very closely, given your amazing track record, particularly you, Rob, actually, I have to say, amongst the three of us. The FIFA Best Awards, which said that they were struggling. FIFA gets rid of them.
Peace Prize.
Of course, the big one, the Peace Prize, inventing a Peace Prize to give it to Donald Trump. The Olympics, what was that Olympics one, Tariq?
That was a 24-hour Olympics all over the world, which was picked up by friend of the pod, Morinawi Watanabe from Japan, who I think got the wooden spoon, unfortunately for him, in the campaign to be Olympic president in 2025.
So in our final pods of 2025, posted a clip that we'd put on the Sport Unlocked TikTok account, and it was just us repeatedly saying the word FIFA, it drawn out from our software, the word we use most often, and we put it on TikTok because it's obviously such a big platform for FIFA.
FIFA.
And then what happens?
This week, FIFA have announced a innovative partnership, the first of its kind preferred platform agreement for the World Cup with
TikTok.
FIFA.
And they will be showing some matches on it. They're going to allow rights holders to put them on there. They're going to get preferred status in terms of advertising to show those games live. And it seems like a way of allowing influencers to post stuff from inside stadiums.
That's going to be live match action from the World Cup on TikTok to allow the broadcast holders to put their games on that platform. Is that right?
Well, it does say, it says some streaming, the streaming of parts of matches, it says that. So it doesn't go as far as to say whole matches. It says live stream parts of matches. So I don't think we're quite at the point yet where you can watch the whole tournament on TikTok, but I might be wrong.
You'll get the water break lives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd think it's going to be the last 10 minutes or something. Otherwise, there's no real point. Or maybe a penalty shootout in the knockouts could be streamed on TikTok. It's not the first time FIFA have gone with a platform like that. There was a Brazilian influencer got live rights, I think, during the Qatar World Cup. So here we go, TikTok.
But are influencers necessarily good for football? How are they using AI? Something to discuss later on about one particular very famous football influencer. But what a start to the new year it has been. I found myself very quickly at Old Trafford after the firing of Ruben Amorim. We'd already had one big sacking already at Chelsea.
Yeah, Maresca went, which was probably not the sort of biggest surprise given that what he'd been saying as expressions of frustrations. But I think what was a big surprise to a lot of people is who has succeeded him and how it happened.
Yeah, this is Liam Rosenior, who previously to getting this Chelsea job was at Strasbourg, his last team. Before that, Hull City, and a short stint at Derby County after Wayne Rooney. Liam Rosenior's move from Strasbourg to Chelsea. Why is it a controversial one?
Well, they are part of the same ownership group, Blueco, involving Todd Bowley and Clear Lake Capital. So it wasn't the most complex of negotiations, was it? Although some reports often portray it as a completely disconnected club-to-club negotiation.
Yeah, clearly it wasn't that. And if you're the sort of senior club in a multi-club ownership organisation, then obviously you can do what you want effectively. And it seems that's what's happened here. Now, because of Premier League rules, Chelsea will have to pay what is agreed to be a market rate of compensation to Strasbourg, but it's like, taking it from one pocket and putting it into the other, as far as I'm concerned. And there have been
what is a market rate for this, though, Ziggs?
Well, exactly. We don't know. So, they will have to see what other, what they've paid, what compensation has been paid to coaches in a similar situation. And then if the Premier, see if it gets sort of Premier League approval. Because that, these are part of the related party transaction rules. But I think that's a sort of, whether or not, how much that is in a way, I think it's not really that
That's
important.
not the story, is it?
No.
He should have spoken out against the club's fans or something and got himself sacked. Then he'd be available for nothing.
Well,
you couldn't speak out against the ownership, obviously. That would be too blatant.
You mentioned the club's fans there, and to be honest, like, they're furious. They're furious, and they were furious before this as well. Strasbourg is a club in its own right, is a historic club, has battled back from bankruptcy, coming up the divisions, and was stabilised before being sold to Blueco 2 years ago. And they promised that the club would be run independently and it's going to be run for itself. And what we've seen here is that Chelsea get to call the shots. What's good for Chelsea is what counts. And those Strasbourg fans and members of the club, they're furious, aren't they? Because we've just seen what MCO is and what it means. The independence of the second or third club in these situations doesn't really count for anything, does it?
Just to give the alternative viewpoint, you could say that actually Strasbourg may not be in the Europa League, for example, if it didn't have the sort of the virtuous results of having this partnership, because they get good players that they may not have got otherwise, and so they're benefiting as well. And actually,
so why are their fans so upset, Martyn?
But no, well, I'm just giving the alternative viewpoint.
No, but the question is, football clubs, and they've got these supporters, they've been protesting for months. Why are they so upset?
Are you suggesting they're ungrateful?
No, absolutely not.
Seasons, though, they finished 7th last season. The previous seasons were 13th, 15th, 6th, 15th, 10th, 11th, 15th after they got promoted to Ligue 1. And this season, they are currently in 7th place. So Blueco have taken them up Ligue 1.
They shouldn't be protesting. They should be chanting MCO, MCO. No, I'm
well, it is a destabilising effect, isn't it? But I think for Rosinia, it's a move he might not necessarily have got at this stage in his career.
No chance. Rob, you're being awfully kind. You're being awfully... There is no way. Big European teams, big Premier League teams think, who we want as our next manager, based on this chap's record, is Liam Rosinia. No, I'm not saying he's not going to be successful. He could end up winning everything at Chelsea, and it could prove to be a blinding decision. But there is nothing to suggest that all these clubs were crying out just to get Liam Rosinia from Strasbourg to manage them. And that's the kind of the crux of this situation. Apparently he's very articulate, a very nice man. He's written columns on politics and sport, very, very intelligent guy, and may turn out to be a good coach. But there was no path to the top of the Premier League for someone with his coaching pedigree up to now.
No, but isn't that the point Rob was making, that actually it's given him an opportunity that he wouldn't have had?
Yes, great otherwise. For him. No one said great for Liam and his family.
So
everyone should be complaining. Then it's the Chelsea fans saying, "Why have we got this person who has limited experience in management, limited experience? Well, not at a big club at all, but he's managed to get this opportunity through the multi-club ownership group, which is obviously there is something that has impressed the ownership.
Give it a few weeks. give it a few weeks, Rob. You might be repeating this. Why are the Chelsea fans complaining? We don't know how he's going to do, and I can't say there is like this massive amount of well-wishing and cheers from the Stamford Bridge crowd that they've got Liam Rosenior. People aren't excited. They weren't happy with Maresca, and there's talk of protests against Clearlake and the Chelsea ownership. It's quite a toxic situation, all of this. Can I ask the question in terms of MCOs? I remember when our first pod was around the Super League, if you remember this, all those years ago.
2021, we've made it into year 6 of
Yeah.
the pod. Longer running than some of those big name football podcasts. We've been there.
As long as Liam Rosenior's contract at Chelsea, funny enough. But the reason I mention that is in the effort to fight off Super League, UEFA and fan groups and governments and everyone else was trying to talk about the football pyramid. We're saving the football pyramid. It's about each team, however small they are, having a chance to work their way up these pyramids. And I must say, this MCO situation says you're not really that independent, some of you teams, because your big team could say, sorry, we're gonna stymie you, and that's from the ownership. That to me sounds slightly antithetical to what the football pyramid story is supposed to be. So, it'd be interesting to see what reaction there is down the line now.
Happens in Formula 1, doesn't it, with the 2 Red Bull teams?
Yeah.
Where the drivers move up to the main Red Bull team.
There's so many of these multi-club organisations now. I think there's more than 100, and 23 at least of these link 3 or more clubs together.
That's all in Blueco.
Yeah, and they can the options for selling the hotels to the different clubs within organisations. There's a huge potential.
Well, that's why we love football. In terms of the Strasbourg fans, in terms of why they should be happy or not happy, this is what they had to say. Not now. This was in the summer when they had record transfer spending, the more spending on players in the history of the club. And this is what they said. To all lovers of Racing, the summer transfer market has ended with record investment for our club. But let us not fool ourselves. This statistical smokescreen instead confirms all the fears we've expressed since the purchase of RCS by Blueco on the 22nd of June 2023. It is now clear that Racing is being used as a speculative reserve intended to accumulate overpaid players in order to extract a capital gain or to feed Chelsea, which is, in a multi-club ownership system, the true first team. The club's communication department dared to conclude this sinister mercato with the slogan, "This squad is built around our values." Yes, around the values of football business, dependency, and speculation to excess. No, not around those of Racing Club de Strasbourg, integrity, independence, strong identity, popular football indifference, which have been dear to us for many years through thick and thin and have made Strasbourg bear letters of nobility. And there you go, Martyn. That's why they're not happy.
And that is the most destabilising part, if the squad chop and changes, players are moved around the group.
Yeah, no, strong words. Look, I don't like the multi-club ownership model myself. You can see why clubs do it because it makes sense for the ones at the top. It doesn't make much sense for the ones lower down, although they can have some perhaps temporary benefits.
There are protests wanting Roman Abramovich back, harking back to his days of, I wouldn't say stability, because obviously he was chopping and changing managers that whole time as well, but certainly they preferred the way things were run back there. And because we mentioned it in the previous podcast, we talked about the legal challenge to get the Abramovich cash released to help the people of Ukraine. And representing Abramovich in a separate case in Jersey is the Shadow Attorney General, David Lord Walsham from the Conservatives. He complained about what Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, said in Prime Minister's Questions, questioning how he can be in the shadow cabinet and advocating on behalf of Abramovich. He pointed out in a letter to the Prime Minister that he's not advising Mr. Abramovich either on UK sanctions or about the proceeds of the Chelsea FC sale. I'm solely instructed in ongoing litigation in Jersey, and says that's relating to data protection, nothing to do with the proceeds of the Chelsea sale. So we have his side of things. Well, owners who do remain at a club but are barely talked about, it seems, are the Glazers, because their PR has been boosted by having Jim Radcliffe at Manchester United. Everything that happens there is now pinned on him. All the chaos, all the questionable decision making. He's the focus of the protests. The person who is the minority owner, well, the Glazers remain very much now in the backseat, majority owners, but left it to Ineos to take all these decisions as the sporting geniuses.
Yeah, we said this would happen as well, if you remember. And there are pods of old that you can look through that by paying $2.5 billion or whatever to run football operations, they have taken a lot of the heat and the pressure away from the Glazer family, because all of the football operations, those decisions are, as Rob was saying, taken by Jim Ratcliffe and co of Ineos. It doesn't look like a great deal for him so far, does it?
No, it's you know, and a few months ago we were talking about giving this Amarin like all the time he needs, and obviously that's run out very quickly. But I mean, it just like it's the classic. To me, I know there's been stuff about personal differences involving Amarin, but to me, I still think that the financial issues call the shots, basically. And you're now facing a situation where Manchester United could be out of the Champions League for 3 years in a row. Now, until this season, they'd never been out of it for 2 years in a row. But the fact that it's 3, and with what that means, you don't get that £80 million UEFA money. You've got a £10 million penalty clause with Adidas. You don't get. I mean, this season they're not even getting any gate receipts from the Europa League or the Conference League. So it's been a bit of a financial disaster. And I think when you're looking at the fact that at the moment they don't look likely to get that 4th place in the Premier League, and I think they just think they've got to do something. And even if they don't make it, they don't want this to happen again next season.
Coefficient must be looking okay for 5th to make Champions League as well this year.
Yeah, probably, but you don't want to bet on that.
No, and you're scraping the barrel a bit with that. The debts, Martyn and Rob, they're still £1 billion, aren't they, at Manchester United? They've spent considerable money on all these players for all these different managers they've had through the door. It's looking quite dicey.
£250 million spent on players in the Amarin era, well, the 14-month Amarin era, and all the payoffs of all the managers, the 6 permanent managers since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013, over £90 million. So surely it's going to be knocking on £100 million, potentially with the Amarin removal. And of course, this at a time that there's been so many job cuts of those rank and file staff, the staff throughout the club who keep the club going, and that's created such a bad atmosphere.
I think it's something that was also gone quite quiet at Manchester United is the stadium, because I think it's with all these financial worries, and the idea is that they're going to have this big cash cow of a new stadium. Who's going to pay for that £2 billion minimum spend for a new stadium?
All the managers they've paid off will fund it.
Well, yeah.
Something that links the firing of Amarin and Maresca is how much comments in press conferences led to their departure. Now, did they say it knowing the fact that they're already heading to a divorce, or perhaps are they lacking that advice about how to manage situations within very political clubs? So with Amarin, it was complaining about transfers, most latterly in his final press conference saying that he shouldn't be head coach, he should be manager. Even though he was named as head coach in the announcement when he was appointed in 2024. Then you've got Maresca, who was using his press conference as well to make cryptic things about the worst, 48 hours of his time at the club. We're seeing it across the Premier League, actually with many managers. Some of their own comments are either creating friction with their own bosses or with the fans themselves. And Yeah. Are they not managing the press conference? Sir Alex Ferguson would say, you can win or lose matches in press conferences. Can you retain or lose your job now in press conferences?
You can, and that's what we've seen twice, both Enzo Maresca and Amorim, as you said. I think, though, in a way, it felt like kamikaze effects from both of those, like this was going to happen, and them just getting out in front of it, because there was the Maresca comments at his worst 48 hours and people at the club trying to destabilize him, and that set the tone for the 10 days or 2 weeks before he was eventually got rid of. And then Amorim out a day after his comments the weekend against Leeds. I mean, there was no way he was going to survive that, was there? So there you go, Rob. Out
Well,
with a press conference.
At least we can trust what we've seen. The fact they did make those comments in the press conferences. Although it's become increasingly hard to know if you can trust what you can see. This week we had very obvious fake images. Donald Trump in a Manchester United garb. Clearly he's not the interim manager. That even made US news, showing how big Manchester United are. But actually it's AI imagery that is creating such concern. And we've seen the dark side of it with Grok and those sexualized images it's creating. But I was starting to see this a few weeks ago in football, certain influencers creating AI images that perhaps on first glance you wouldn't know that they were fake and they were AI.
No, there have been a rash of these. I actually think it's quite serious, this. Because when you have, like, for example, like the football transfer influencer Fabrizio Romano posting to 41 million followers on Instagram, these pictures which have just been created by AI. For example, I mean, this week he's done Antoine Semenyo signing on the dotted line with Pep Guardiola leaning on his shoulders. It's not even happened yet. He's got Semenyo he's shaking the hands of Yaya Toure because he may have the same number shirt as him. He's got Liam Rosenior wearing a Chelsea suit. Now, people think, oh, this is just a bit of fun, but actually, if you go to those extremes, I actually think if you can't believe something, and it doesn't make it clear that it's AI either, then
it does have a notification on Insta that appears at certain times.
What do you mean it has a notification at certain times? I've not seen those. What would we be looking at?
It's where your location might be if you put a location post or you put music on the post, so it revolves around those other messages on rotation.
Will it come up every time? Is my question. Though.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not on the picture the whole time. It disappears, for example.
And presumably other people will scrape that picture and it will be used all over the place.
Of course.
So once any of those 40 million people, the network effect of that is going to be enormous, isn't it? And it's out there.
And we saw one that was not created by Fabrizio Romano, but it was from elsewhere on the internet. It was all relating to these weight checks that Pep Guardiola talked about he would do after Christmas. Now, we've seen no actual images of those weight checks, but I think a lot of fans will probably think they have seen it because there was one of Erling Haaland doing it. Was that posted by Fabrizio Romano?
Yes, it was. But he did make clear that was AI. But Donnarumma actually posted one himself, the Manchester City goalkeeper, an AI image of himself being weighed, which Haaland actually commented on. And so it just shows people obviously thought that was real. I mean, just to say, Fabrizio Romano has been called out on this by a Canadian sports TV presenter called Faisal Khamisa, who basically criticised him for doing so. And he said, Romano responded saying, "Relax, let people do what they want. I'm not using AI to put a country in trouble." And furthermore, the Donnarumma one was screenshotted and used on the BBC's Match of the Day Twitter account, and without them making clear it was AI. Maybe they didn't even know, but it just shows it just enters the mainstream media. So
travels.
And people aren't necessarily fully internet savvy. You're scrolling really quickly. you could be someone who's less familiar with social media who gets it. It could be posted on a WhatsApp group and then shared around, and it sort of loses all connection with where it originally started from, because it's just quite funny, and people won't see it as necessarily damaging in the same way as artificially created images of news situations or the sexualized images that are being created by Grok. But it's all part of the same spectrum of what you can rely on and what the information that you're seeing.
Yeah, it's part of this bigger ecosystem and the conversations around disinformation as well. Perhaps this is one way for some of these influencers to get around some of the costs they have, which is a bit grim.
Well, I don't know what software is being used to create these AI images. It looks like very sophisticated software, so it might well be using official images, because we are seeing real people. It's not like some of these AI softwares that are creating images of footballers that don't really look like them. So,
but you're not paying the photo agency, are you? You're
we
paying
don't
the
know
AI
if the AI company is that's creating them.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is one that like we've started the debate here now, but it's something that I'm sure we're going to come back to.
For sure. Do you think? I thought I was watching AI actually when saw this video of a professional women's tennis tournament, the International Tennis Federation's W35 tournament in Nairobi, Kenya, where there was a wildcard entry, an Egyptian Haja Abdelkader, 21-year-old. She was possibly the worst player who's ever played in a professional tournament.
Yes.
I think they've admitted it was a mistake, the organisers. But, it was quite funny if you see it.
She won 3 points, though, didn't she, Martyn? How did she win them?
Yes, two double faults and an unforced error.
We have had a statement from Tennis Kenya who said that she was granted a wild card for week 2 of the event after submitting a formal request and talking about how there'd been a short notice withdrawal by the originally intended recipient. So at the time, she was the only other player who'd requested a wild card. Therefore, she was granted the place based on the information provided. And they said it's all about the interest of maintaining a full and balanced draw and supporting development of tennis in Africa. So they have acknowledged that, it should not have happened.
Doing a Rob Harris here, I will say this, though. This competition in Kenya would never have got as much attention as it has this week.
They just needed a sponsor name attached to it, because then we'll be repeating the name with the sponsor.
Yeah. The ITF W35 tournament sponsored by Sport Unlocked.
There you go.
In association with Grok. We can guarantee this is completely us speaking on this episode, because this podcast software we do use can actually learn our voices, and you put the text in and it can just spew out us talking. I've never tried it, never given it the okay to take our voices.
No. FIFA.
Maybe we granted one of those content creator options to be able to stream parts of the match on TikTok. Maybe just the director's box, the VIP box we could have a stream of.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Well, you can message us on all the social platforms at Sport Unlocked as ever. And thank you for listening to us at the start of Series 6 of Sport Unlocked. For now, thank you for listening. Goodbye.